This is my video for the interpretation and analyzation of the assignment, text. The title which I have chosen is Don't You Hate Having Two Heads? This text is written by Christine Poulsen in 2006 under the genre short story. Now, this uh, this text takes place in Venice, Italy, and yeah, it revolves around our main character, Richard. Now, Richard is going to a museum, but he seems very awkward, very out of place, nervous. And he goes around looking for something we don't know yet. And then he finds it. He finds a young woman, about, I don't know how old she really is, but she's younger than him, which is made clear in the text. This woman has blonde hair with brown eyes, which he finds very peculiar, unique, beautiful. I have to agree with him because that's a very rare thing to find. So he kind of starts stalking her, which is where we are led to believe that he is the killer of the story because the story has to have one. Now, we are led to believe that he is the murderer because he stalks her without her knowing, which is what you do. So he follows her around, looks at the painting that she is looking at, the sculptures and whatnot, but they're all somehow connected to murder and despair and discomfort. So after a while, he loses her and starts to panic a little bit. So when he finds her again, he confronts her immediately and has this feeling of relief. So he confronts her and asks her if she wants to talk about the painting that she's standing by, which is a painting called Attirement of the Bride by Max Ernst, painted in 1940. So the painting is very peculiar because it's a woman where you can see her upper body sticking out from a dress. Now you can see some features of a human face underneath a blanket of fur, but above the human features, there seems to be features of an owl. Now, an owl is a predator, we all know that, but a human is not. So that doesn't really make sense. So they after they have this conversation about this Max Ernst Attirement of the Bride painting, they go to have dinner. Here they start talking more about other stuff that really isn't important. But she pulls out a newspaper and asks him if he had heard about the killings. And he said no. Um, this is in Italian. I can't read Italian. I'm waiting for the English version to come out because he cannot speak Italian. So right there, we are informed that there are murders happening by a serial killer with cheese strings, which I find very entertaining. It's just an entertaining thought. So right here, we know that this lady, which is named Jessica David, has has some kind of fascination with murder, discomfort, and discontent. She likes the way this Attirement of the Bride is because there's an owl above, which for me symbolizes the predator hiding behind the innocent girl, which ties into the story beautifully in a bit. So, for some reason, Richard starts to get uncomfortable. He goes to the bathroom, washes himself with cold water, and starts to think, what's going on here? He thinks he has been poisoned by food or something, food poisoning from the other day, the fish perhaps. But he then goes out again, and then for some reason has some kind of illusion that he sees this lady from the Attirement of the Bride painting from Max Ernst, where the woman is looking at her, at him, sorry, but there is something above her. There's an owl that turns its its head and looks at Richard. And he starts to panic. And for some reason, he just grabs his bag and just runs. He doesn't know exactly why he suddenly feels uncomfortable. Maybe it's because he actually is married, and this is actually shown by the way that he hides his wedding ring and puts it in his pocket when he actually finds her after he lost Jessica Davis. So he runs away into his hotel, which he stays at. So at this point, we are led to believe that he was the murderer the whole time, but then the plot twist hits because he grabbed the wrong bag. See, there were two bags actually. One of the bags were his, and one of the bags were hers. And the bag that was hers had a bunch of postcards from this A Time of the Bride, like 16 of them, with cheese string, which was the exact weapon that the murderer from the newspaper also used. And we also learned that the murderer only went after men who were married, which Richard was. So we were led to believe this whole time that Richard was this murderer, and in fact it was Jessica Davis.